Hello everyone. Today in our studio we have with us a clinical immunologist and allergist. In fact, we are very lucky to have Dr. Anita Kamat-Dudane with us because in India there are just about two, if I'm not mistaken. There are just two clinical immunologists, and we are so lucky to have her not just in our studio but in Goa. So welcome, Dr. Anita.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming on our show. First and foremost, I know that is a Kunbi sari. It looks absolutely lovely on you.
Yes.
And this is the first time someone on our show has worn a Kunbi sari. Absolutely beautiful. And how come you decided to wear Kunbi sari? Like, what happened?
This is a Goan channel. This is a Goan sari. We don't have any other real weave from Goa. And so I thought, why not have a Kunbi sari?
That's so lovely on such an auspicious day to see something so lovely and so Goan and so natural. Thank you for doing that. Also, I would like to take this opportunity. You know, Happy Dussehra is not just from me and Dr. Anita, but also from the Navin Times and from Goa 365. We have been from the 24th of May. We have been having our talks. I just wanted to give you just a little bit of information that the Navin Times since 2011 has been organizing events, workshops and competitions. And we can do this only because of your feedback, because of your goodwill. So we take this opportunity to say thank you to everyone. In fact, today is our 89th event. We are nearing 100, and with your cooperation and blessings, I'm sure we are going to reach not just 100, much beyond. To start with, Dr. Anita, as a child, I think when I was about 7 years old when I started getting allergies. Till I was about 13, 14, it was really bad. And believe it or not, I suffered. I suffered like crazy because I used to get hives. And these hives were so weird because I went from each doctor while I used to live in Bombay then, of course, and we had so many different doctors. So from one doctor to another, from so on and so forth. Finally, I used to live in a place called Bombay Central. I went to Chembur, and there was this doctor who started with the treatment, and it was getting better, and then suddenly again it started. And what used to happen was, I was in school then, of course. He said no eggs. Nothing to do with sulfur, so no dals, no rice, no potatoes, and carbs as well. I used to not eat that, and yet the next day I used to wake up and I used to actually, I'm serious, I used to look like an alien because I used to have this 1 ear of mine really swollen, or my lip used to be swollen, and I didn't know how to go because going to school was, I used to miss out on school. So there are allergies and there are allergies. So what type of, different types of allergies there are?
So there are, like you said, hives are skin allergy. Now allergies affect all the systems of the body. So if you have a nasal allergy, it's called allergic rhinitis. You get up in the morning and you sneeze.
I had that as well.
A lot of people have that.
Right.
So people have also itchy eyes, which is called allergic conjunctivitis. And this can really be traumatic because if you're scratching your eyes all the time, you can end up with ulcers on your cornea and things because you're scratching a lot.
Right.
Then you also have asthma, which
again something I have.
So if you have, for example, allergic rhinitis, not treated very much, then that can cause it. Also secondary conditions like sinusitis, for example. So if you have a lot of rhinitis, then your sinuses get inflamed, and then you can have allergic sinusitis as well. And then you have the skin disorders. So two major allergic skin disorders are hives, like you said, urticaria, and the second is eczema. So eczema is when you get this really dry, itchy skin on your forearms and the joints, neck, and that a lot of children suffer very badly. The whole night they scratch and it's very difficult for them. And then you have GI allergies, which are severe gastrointestinal allergies with severe pain, You can have vomiting when you eat some food. You can have instant diarrhea, or you can have more chronic allergies which will cause an IBS, irritable bowel syndrome like situation.
Right.
And then you have a chronic kind of thing with your gut. So allergies can really affect, like I said, all systems, and sometimes they can come together. You can have allergic rhinitis for some time, and then it will become hives, and then it will become eczema. Some children come with all of them. So it is a really difficult situation. You can have light allergies, just sneezing once in a while, or you can have severe allergies like you did, where your lips swell. Now, there's the highest kind of allergy you can have is something called angioedema, in which case your lips will swell, your eyes will swell, but your tongue swells.
And that's very dangerous.
Dangerous. But if your tongue swells, then your throat will close up, and then you will have.
So there's the air passage gets blocked.
So in that case, you have to rush to a hospital within 20 minutes. So allergies can range from really nothing but a quite sneeze once in a while to really serious conditions like angioedema.
Right.
Yeah.
So what causes them? I mean, like as I said, I was told, don't eat this, don't eat this, don't. I stopped, but I still used to get them.
So allergies it depends on the kind of allergies that you have. For example, if you have a runny nose, itchy eyes, it can be either a seasonal allergy, in which case it's a pollen. In Goa, for example, the grass is a very large part of allergies, the wild grass,
right,
the grass in your garden. If it's seasonal, or it's certain trees, mango tree season. So it's really interesting. So when people say, I have sneezing only at this time, then I can more or less narrow it down and say, oh, it's a mango flowering season, for example, or something like that. Or you can have a throughout the year allergy like a dust mite allergy, in which case, or mold allergy, which is mostly in the monsoon season, So you can have all these for upper respiratory tract kind of allergies. But food allergies, hives, for example, or eczema, have a large connection with food. So it's not that everyone has all the allergies, and it's a routine thing to say, okay, stop eggs, stop fish, stop this, stop that. But without knowing for sure, it doesn't make sense to stop a whole lot of food in a growing child if it's a child.
I was 7.
You're 7 and you don't even know what it is or it's not. And even if it is, suppose, let's say, egg allergy or something like that, it will take you some time for the hives to stop. So you wouldn't really even know whether there's a direct connection. It won't stop today, you stop eggs, and tomorrow morning the allergies go. It doesn't work like that. It takes about 4 weeks. So you really can't pinpoint on your own. And to stop a whole lot of foods makes no sense at all. Right. Yesterday I had a child who was about 15 months old with the most severe egg allergy I've ever seen in my career.
So what hives?
The child had come with hives and breathing difficulties, but and then it was referred to me, and then we checked the skin test, and it was massive allergies, totally life-threatening allergy in this child. And so this child's parents have to be very, very careful. So I had to go through all various foods that have eggs in a hidden form as well. So this can be how serious an allergy can be.
So you said that this child is 15 months old.
Yeah.
So, can a newborn have allergies as well?
So a newborn can have allergies if the mother has allergies. So it goes through the maternal system. Now, what are allergies? I mean, allergies are the immune system's response to something it perceives as bad. So we all have immune systems, and we're supposed to fight against viruses and bacteria and worms, for example. But in this case, the immune system makes a mistake. It starts to react against something that's in your environment, in your food, in your different places, and that is what an allergy is. It's an auditory response to something which is in your system. And you must have heard now that allergies are increasing greatly. In America, for example, it's a #1 disease. There's billions of dollars of industry. Whole of Europe as well. So the question is, so when I moved to India, I hadn't quite expected to see so many allergies here, because the studies are quite good. The more a child spends time outdoors, the more a child spends time in the farm, for example, they have very few allergies. So I assume that in India we wouldn't see it because a lot of our children in my childhood used to play outdoors a lot. But then again here we are seeing large numbers of increase, and this is primarily because we are adopting the Western lifestyle, in which case the child spends a lot of time indoors with their gadgets,
oh my goodness, yes.
with their computers.
It's like the umbilical cord, they're just connected to it and you can't do
So that means
anything.
they don't go out much, they don't have much contact with the mud, or they don't have much contact with animals, for example. So the immune system doesn't get a chance to move.
To develop.
From so usually a baby is born with a certain kind of immune system,
right.
which is an allergic immune system. And as time goes by, within the first year of life, every infection that you get pushes the immune system towards the inflammatory immune system, In this case now, children don't get sick also because we don't allow them to get sick. I mean, the minute they fall sick, we give them an antibiotic immediately. We give them, they're vaccinated for most of the childhood diseases. They don't even have worms now, So with this, the immune system doesn't get an opportunity then to convert from an allergic immune system to an inflammatory immune system. So the rule of thumb is really interesting. More than 10 childhood infections in the first year of life, 0 asthma. And less than 1 infection in the first year of life, 100% asthma.
Is it?
Yeah, it's
so
really
are you,
amazing.
I'm a little confused, okay? This may sound silly. Are you saying that it's okay, it's good for children to get these diseases rather than give them vaccines and say no, you shouldn't?
No, I'm not quite saying that. I'm saying that for certain diseases, I mean like polio for example, of course you need to immunize
right.
for polio, meningitis, things that cause huge illnesses and diseases and cause a lot of sequelae, for example. But for basic things, like coughs and colds, things like that, there's no need to constantly treat them. I mean, let them fall
Let them
sick.
get that cold.
Let them get the cold. Let them play in that mud.
Let them play in the rain.
Let them play in the rain. Let them be. Let them
yes.
Grow like how we were supposed to grow. I mean, if we have a farm and they have great contact with animals, so be it. I mean, then it's less chance of allergic disease later on. But the immune system needs to develop. And also it's really interesting, more hygienic the mother, the more chemical products she uses, for example,
the worse it gets.
then the more the allergies. For example, East Germany versus West Germany. West Germany has about 60% to 70% of the children have allergies, whereas East Germany, same genetic type, everything is same, but they're poorer and they're more farm-based, so less than 16% allergies. So really interesting to see.
So basically, what you're saying is you need to get out there, go out, play.
Yes,
get the colds, get the colds in the sense, okay, if you get a cold, get a fever, don't keep taking antibiotics.
Just treat the child all the time. I mean, let the child be, and let the child's immune system grow to fight against what it's supposed to fight against. Right. And if you don't do that, then it will, an idle mind is a devil's workshop, right? So the immune system sitting around, it starts to mount against things in your environment.
Right, right. You mentioned that you were in America and you are a clinical immunologist. Now, we all know immunity and immunologists, but what is clinical immunologist?
So, it's a fellowship like you would do cardiology or...
So a speciality?
Yeah, it's after medicine you would do a specialty. So this is one of those, a fellowship where you deal with allergies and clinical immunology, which is the arthritis and things like that. So rheumatology has now taken a lot of that as well. But that's more of, again, autoimmune arthritis and stuff goes under rheumatology. But clinical immunology also deals with the other side, I mean allergies and the other side of the immune system. But I also worked with HIV in the US. I have a PhD in immunology as well, when I worked with the immune system and HIV, and we discovered how HIV destroyed the entire immune system and what is the mechanism. Highly exciting time at the,
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Especially now with the coronavirus, you can see, a totally different virus. Similarly with HIV at that time in the early 90s, HIV was a huge mystery.
It
And
was.
So it was wonderful to work with some of the leading minds on that. Yeah.
And to hopefully, I mean, to see how the immune system really works,
Yes,
isn't it wonderful?
In fact, this is the most beautiful part about these viruses, of course. I mean, of course, we don't want to get sick and have these viruses.
No.
But they show us how the immune system works. The HIV really taught us how the CD4 cells, the CD8 cells, how are the B cells important. It's like an orchestra. That's
the first time I heard someone say something like that about the immune system.
It's like an orchestra.
So you're listening, I hope.
It's like an orchestra. It's like, if one of these things are missing, the whole immune system, literally collapses.
Yes.
You have to have all
of them
these various
working.
things. And so HIV taught us how if the CD4 cells are removed, then things don't function the way they're supposed to function. So it was a most incredible time of my life studying this at that time. Yeah.
That's interesting. Just let's get back to the viewers. Doctor, viewers are going to be sending in any questions, so whenever the questions come up, we are going to be reading. While they are sending their questions, I have a list of questions myself. So, you have said the most common allergies are basically what you have explained, the hives, the rhinitis, which is a sneezing. I'm giving you my own example. I still always roam, with me, I'm not roaming about, but I carry with me my pump.
Yeah.
I have Budacort, which I use, because there are times, especially when I think it's extremely stressed. I think that's another cause of stress. When I'm extremely stressed, either I start with my hives, and believe it or not, the hives are not just isolated in one area like the arms or the legs. Sometimes it even are on the breasts and the buttocks, which becomes very difficult because when you are in public and you need to scratch it, because that's the only thing that really helps you, because once you scratch you feel better. I mean, I heard many people say, don't scratch, don't scratch, it's going to spread. But till I scratch it, I am suffering. I need that release of me scratching it. I used to, believe it or not, as I said, in school, I used to go and I used to have, and I have had my classmates ask me, Maria, what is that? Because I used to scratch so hard that even though we had to cut, I was in a convent school and nails had to be cut, they were checked every day. But it was like, even then I used to scratch myself so hard because it was so horrible. It was terrible. So I know people out there who have allergies, how difficult it is. But tell me something about stress. How stress is related?
So stress is like when you have a wound and you put salt on the wound burns and hurts, right? So stress aggravates allergies. You still have to have an underlying cause. You have to have some other organic cause, but on top of that, stress almost always aggravates allergies. Whether it is wheezing, if you are wheezing already, or something stresses you, then you're more likely to wheeze, you're more likely to scratch. The skin is the largest detoxifying agent of the body. So a lot of times stress can aggravate skin disorders, and so in your case, like you noticed, when you were very stressed, the hives also came.
The hives and the wheezing.
And the wheezing.
And sometimes they come together.
They come together.
Oh my goodness.
It's a really hard.
It's horrible.
Yeah, if anyone who's been through it or has a child who's been through it,
I've been through it, so I know what it is.
Staying nights after nights with a wheezing child, or a child who's got eczema and is scratching and scratching and scratching till the blood comes out, is really rough.
It's a harrowing experience,
it can be
believe
quite
it or
tough.
not. Yes.
So, but for some reason in general medicine, allergies are not considered that, it's considered a psychosomatic illness. It's considered not, really, for some reason doesn't get the
kind of attention
that,
and importance.
The importance and attention that it deserves.
But they're not psychosomatic, are they?
No, they're not psychosomatic. Like I said, they're aggravated by stress, but they're definitely not psychosomatic. If they're psychosomatic, then you wouldn't have an organic. If you remove the root cause, then it should not come. I mean, if your wound is healed, if you put salt on it, it doesn't cause any aggravation, right?
Right.
Similarly with allergies, if the root cause is removed, then the top, stress would not aggravate it as much.
You know, maybe this is, I'm sure there are people out there who use what I used to use, because everyone used to tell me this. You take sola, bhinda sol, and they said you take it and you just rub it.
Yeah.
So I was scratching.
Yeah.
I had wells on my hands, on my body, and then I was using this bhinda sol. I used to howl. I literally used to howl. But today I think there are a lot of medication that helps.
There are, of course, medications. One of the things you can use is calamine lotion.
Yes.
Which calms it down right away, or it has, if you were in acute agony, of course. But there are medications. You have anti-allergy medications of various kinds. You can have something that lasts for 8 hours, something that lasts for 6 hours, or 24 hours, 36 hours, a lot of time. And also they're non-sedating now. The old days, Avil and things like that would really knock you out, you know. So today
that was what I used to use. So
today we have other medications which don't knock you out. The other problem with these medicines also is that with children, of course they don't sleep at night because they're either wheezing or they're scratching. The medication you give them also makes them drowsy.
Yes.
So the learning scores of these children with allergies is much lower than normal children. Because just imagine if you're running nose, just doing this, your nose is constantly running, you're constantly doing this, you know.
Yes.
Your eyes are itching and your eyes are scratching.
You can't concentrate.
You can't concentrate. Your ears, because of the fact that they're blocked, you can't hear very well, you know. And you've taken this Avil, or you've taken something like that, which is causing you to be drowsy on top of everything else. So just see how much can a child learn in these situations. And so it is something that we have to look at more seriously, I think.
Okay. Now, you're talking about Avil. I used to, and I always carry it still.
Yeah, I used to.
You know, because that's the only one. I tried Allegra, but it didn't really work for me. So I always keep an Avil with me, and 0.25 mg. But like you said, it makes me
very drowsy.
Yeah. I take it, so I avoid taking it the whole day. So you can imagine, I have my hives or I have my wheezing, and I'm not taking it only because I know it'll, make me drowsy, and then I have to avoid driving and everything. Now, there are some people who have a lot of sneezing, and that's another thing. Sneezing.
Correct.
Sometimes I start sneezing. I can sneeze, for about 2 to 3 minutes non-stop. I get so exhausted by the end of it.
You know, I went into this field primarily because I suffered from allergies so bad.
Oh, is it?
You know, so as a child, if you look at all my photographs, it always appears that I have an oriental looking eye. And so I always had conjunctivitis. I was always sneezing. I was always coughing. I was always wheezing. But those days, no one knew, you know. So I kept asking my mother even later, well, how come you didn't? And she said, no one knew. You know, they always thought that I was constantly having bacterial conjunctivitis, you know, I didn't realize. So when I went to the US and I realized that such a field is available, it was really important for me to take it because I have suffered so much. And so I really feel for my patients because I've gone through it myself. You know?
Right.
So when you're itching and scratching, so there are two ways to treat this. One way is medically. I mean, you treat it with medications to suppress the immune system, correct? The second way is to find out what's causing it, okay? And then try and teach the immune system to accept it. Okay, there are
How
two
do
ways.
you do that?
So there are two ways. So the first way is to suppress it. I mean, you just take all these antihistamines, you take this, but for how long? I mean, you can't keep the immune system suppressed for a long period of time, right? I mean, temporarily, once or twice, you're sneezing, okay, you can pop in a pill. But on a long-term basis, that's not an option. So what we do is we test someone to find out what exactly, and this is available today, right? So we can test them and say, if you come to me with, for example, sneezing, itchy eyes, then I'll test you for more of the outdoor pollen, for mold, for dust mites, for cockroaches, cats and dogs and things like that. Of course, we take an extensive history first, which gives me a clue as to what I'm supposed to test for. Everyone's not tested for the same things. If you come with more skin allergies, then we look for more foods and more things like that, So once we test you and we know what it is that you're allergic to specifically, let's say in this little baby's case, we know it was so clear the child was allergic to eggs. Then we can train the mom. We can say, okay, don't eat any of these things, don't, and she was breastfeeding the child, so I could tell her, please, you will have to stop doing that as well, eating eggs.
So the mother had to stop eggs.
So eggs also when she's breastfeeding
because
the child.
She's breastfeeding,
and so then also that to say, okay, things that you'd never imagine has eggs. For example, patties. The glazing on top to give it the shine is a glaze. So things like that. So for me, when I moved to India, it was really hard because I didn't know. Because in the US, you just look at the back of a carton and everything is listed. Here, for example, we don't. I mean, most of the stuff we don't have a listing at all. So therefore, I have to train the mother to say,
okay, check for this,
check for this, check for this. So it's really exhausting for the mother, but it's really useful because at the end of the day, the child doesn't get all these things. So once we find out what you're allergic to, if it's as simple as, for example, food, just stop it, But if it is something like a pollen, or if it is something like a dust mite that you can't avoid, then we can desensitize for it.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a question. Could I take that,
yeah, sure, please.
Doctor, please? Yeah. So we have Daphne Viegas Cardozo. Says, my son is 13 years old. He has eczema from the age of 3. Instead of reducing, it is worsening by the day. What has to be done? He also has morning sneezing. Wheezing has reduced a lot though. Daphne, thanks for your question. Doctor is going to answer. Yes, doctor.
Yeah, so this is a very typical history of a child with allergies. Okay, they start at the age of 3 usually, and then we have these markers of 3, 6 and 12, So 12, the wheezing has gone down, but the eczema has gone up. So usually what happens is eczema and wheezing go like that. So when the eczema is very high, the wheezing goes down, and when the wheezing is very high, the eczema goes down. Okay, so this child has all the varieties. It has eczema, it has allergic rhinitis, it has wheezing, it has all these various allergies. So when I would see this child, I would definitely test this child to see what exactly is this child allergic to. So once we find out what the child is allergic to, then we will treat the child exactly for what it is allergic to, and the success rate is very high.
Right. So now there are tests. Like when when I was a child, and when I started with I told you I was about 7 years old at that time approximately. I can't remember clearly. I just know that was a harrowing time, and I literally suffered. And there was this doctor I had gone to. Now, he had said something about tests. The tests were very expensive. We couldn't afford it. And so he says, generally these are the things, eggs and potatoes and rice dal, don't eat those. But today the tests are there.
Yeah.
And I also heard that there are 2 types of tests. One is an actual blood test, and one is the prick test.
Correct.
Am I right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So there are 2 kinds of tests. So one is called the RAST, R-A-S-T, radioadsorbent serum testing, where they take your blood and they check for the certain immunoglobulin called IgE towards these various things. And the second is called a modified skin prick test. Worldwide, the gold standard is a modified skin prick test. But for that, you need an allergy specialist where you are. So if you don't have an allergy specialist, then the RAST test is done just to give you an idea as to what could be the case. But RAST is really expensive, like you said. It can go for the whole test to about 40,000 odd rupees. I mean, it's crazy.
The last I heard it, somebody mentioned it to me, it was about 70 in Bombay.
Yeah, so one of our ministers who came to us, to me last week, had spent 40,000 rupees to send their blood to Bombay, and the report that came back had countless things positive, countless things. That's the problem with RAS test. It's very non-specific. So let's say you have an egg allergy, chicken will show, this will show, that will show. It cross-reacts quite a bit. So a modified skin prick test gives you a much more specific answer. You don't get so many things positive. You get
so it's more effective. That's
very
what you're
much
saying.
more, and it's sensitive, far more sensitive and more specific as we use medical language in this case. So you know, so these tests are definitely available. Again, a modified skin test depends on where you are. It depends on the doctor, you know, and the costs vary based on that. In Goa, I'm doing my level best to keep it extremely affordable. But unfortunately, it looks like more than Goan people, I have more patients from Delhi and Bombay and Karnataka and other places, even Bangladesh, than I have.
No, in fact,
Goa.
I have been, you know, people from outside Goa have said to me that we have come to Goa, you know, you all have an immunologist. So again, to all our viewers, all those who are watching, please remember there are just 2 clinical immunologists in India. One of them is in Bombay and the other one is in Goa. And I think we should make good use of it. We are blessed. We are truly blessed, because if we have someone like doctor, and from the rates that I have compared, because you know, for a family member, I was checking out because he has, a family member has allergies, and I was checking out the prices in Bombay. Bombay, it's I think 10 times more. I may be wrong, but from the little I've seen, from the little that I have checked, doctor, I mean, it's at least 10 times. And you know, if we have you here, and there are Daphne, doctor is here, and yes, I'm sure, like she said, she has kept her rates really, really, you know, to the bare minimum. So maybe you should meet her, Daphne. I don't know.
Yeah. So Daphne's child would be an ideal child to get completely well. Because in this case, all 3 of the symptoms are associated to allergies. So by removing the root allergy, I could definitely sort out all 3 of them.
Okay. My next question to you, doctor. I have a long list of questions now. Right. So you have told me, you know, about the symptoms of an allergy. So basically the hives, right?
Hives or runny nose, sneezing, wheezing, eczema, all those various things. Yeah.
So eczema basically is the drying of the skin.
Yeah. So eczema has a very interesting etiology. So one, there are many reasons for eczema, but one of the reasons is definitely an underlying allergy. The second is, you know, lack of vitamin D. So this has been clearly shown. A lot of Goan children who move to England come back with eczema. The reason is they have carpeting there, so dust mites are very high. They have radiator heating, so it dries out the skin, and they have lack of sunlight, and so they have vitamin D deficiencies. But eczema also, another reason for eczema is that when you have one infection at some point, the staph, you're missing a couple of enzymes that deals with staph. Staphylococcus, it's a bacteria, and so when it has an enterotoxin which enters your body, and then the eczema flares up again and again and again. But still removing, not all eczemas do as well, but see, among all of the allergic conditions, for me personally, eczema is closest to my heart. The reason is that eczema comes up at its worst when the child is about 12. The whole self-esteem, especially if it's a girl child, you know, and the skin is in such a bad case, it comes on the face, the neck. It's really demoralizing for the child.
Is it a cure though?
Of course, I wish I had a picture of this child who comes from Bangladesh. She came in such a bad shape, and today, a year later, her skin has really healed quite a lot, and plus she's doing so well, and she wants to be a doctor and help other children as well, because she suffered so much. One of the more common things with eczema is, of course, because the skin is so dry, that you do give emollients and you give these things, but you still have to find the root of what's causing the itch, you know, and depending on how bad the child is. If the child comes early, the sky is the limit. But if the child comes with lichenification, which is very thick skin from constant scratching, then it takes time for the healing to occur. So
you spoke about Lichenification.
Yeah, lichenification.
Now I know someone who has something to do with lichen. I don't know what is it called.
That's lichen planus.
Okay.
That's a totally different disease. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not really an allergic disease.
Oh, it's not allergy.
No, that's a
with something to do with the skin then.
It's a different disease.
Okay, all
Lichen
right.
planus.
Now, as I said, there are times when I wake up sneezing. My nose is blocked. It's the AC. I know it's the AC, and I wake up with my nose blocked. But some people wake up and they feel they have a cold.
Correct.
But it turns out that they have an allergy. So how do you differentiate between the two?
That's a really good question. Now, allergies don't have fever associated with it. They don't have
Right.
body ache associated with it. It's a very regular thing that you come every morning, you get up and you do this. This is called the allergic salute, okay? So technically it's really called
Oh my
allergic
God.
salute, and they have a crease on the nose like you have. Because of the constant doing this, there's a crease on the nose. They have allergic shiners under their eyes.
What's that?
They have dark circles under their eyes because the blood pools in the face. And so under the skin, your skin is very thin. So you can see the blood pooling. So there's dark circles under the eyes, and these are called allergic shiners, you know. So they have all these various symptoms, allergic faces we call it. They have a face.
Right.
The minute they walk in, I know that whether they're allergic or not, and I know how bad the allergies are based on all these things. They also have, this concept, things like that. They have these various things. And so there's another thing called adenoids. They are like tonsils. They have these glands behind small children till the age of 12 have them, and they go away after 12. They shrink. But in these children, also their mouths are always open because they can't breathe. The nose is totally blocked, so their mouth breathes. So the mouth is always open, and they breathe through their mouth. So and they have this slightly patchy skin. So all
These are all symptoms.
All these are symptoms. So, the minute
Yes.
a person comes in, a child comes in, I can usually tell, okay, this is an allergy. So, cold and a flu is totally different. Cold doesn't come throughout the year, and like you mentioned, AC aggravates it. So, your nose is, like a mine because of the constant barrage of the allergic cells. So at that time, anything will trigger it. A strong smell, agarbatti, AC, fan, just someone touching your nose is enough to start a sneezing attack.
Absolutely.
So these are all parts.
Absolutely.
part
This
of the
touching
thing.
part that you have said, if by chance something hits my nose,
you
first
start-
and foremost my eyes start watering. Like
yes.
I'm literally sobbing,
Yeah.
and then the sneezing starts.
Yeah. So this is
Oh my goodness
a
me, it is
classic
like
allergy,
absolutely
not a cold.
It is not a cold. So that
yeah.
is, so what do parents need to, I'm sure there are parents out there who are wondering, okay, what do I look for if and make out that this is an allergy and this is not just a cold. So what am I to
The child is
look at?
getting up every morning and it's sneezing every morning.
Right.
And it has a nose block at night. It has these symptoms, like I said, you do this all the time. The child is touching a mouth. Or they also make these rabbit-like movements, something like that. So they do that. So if it's doing any of that, then it's an allergy because it's an itch. Okay, if it's got a runny nose, it's got fever, it's not feeling well, it's got green mucus, it's an infection. It's a cold.
It's a cold.
It's a cold. That's the
Fine.
difference. Yeah.
Right. Okay. My next question to you is what is the difference between food intolerance and food allergy? Both sound, same
Yeah.
actually. Isn't it?
No, they're not the same at all. So food intolerance is, for example, lactose intolerance. You must have heard of it,
Yes.
right? Some children are born with missing enzymes. So enzyme that can digest the lactose in
Basically
milk.
process it,
So it's
right?
called lactase. That's the enzyme. So that would be an intolerance. So that they cannot digest milk. But as time goes by, some of the children start to
Develop.
produce the lactase. If they don't, then from outside you can give a tablet called Lactaid that can
Helps them
digest
too.
and they can help. Or they can't have milk per se, but they can definitely have yogurt. Because when you ferment the milk, the lactase
Chemical,
is produced by the
yes.
bacteria.
So basically the chemical,
correct. So that would be the
thing that
history. They
changes.
would say that, my child can't have yogurt. They can have yogurt, but they can't have milk. Every time they have milk, they have indigestion, they have diarrhea, they don't feel well, they have bloating,
stomachs, yes.
So the most common two intolerances are lactose intolerance and gluten intolerance, which is wheat. Okay, so these are the two intolerances that are most common. But there are really very few real intolerances. So in gluten, for example, the extreme height of not being able to digest gluten is celiac disease.
What's that?
Celiac disease is when a child comes totally constantly with diarrhea, diarrhea, because anything anything wheat based or gluten based the child can't digest. That's the worst of, and that's usually a reasonably lifelong condition. Now food allergy is totally different. Food allergy is that your immune system mounts a reaction against a food. Okay, so when you do a skin test, you won't find an intolerance because the enzyme is missing. It won't show. It's not, the immune system is not doing anything, right?
Right.
But a food allergy is when the immune system mounts a response to a food that it considers bad, and then you will have hives, you will have lip swelling, you will have eye swelling, you have angioedema, you have all these other kind of conditions. So a food allergy is definitely quite serious because it's an immune system mounting a response. So why are the reasons for a food allergy? Some of the most common reasons for a food allergy are, the gut lining is loose at birth, or if you had a very bad diarrhea attack, then becomes loose. At that time, if you had any of these proteins, it can enter your bloodstream, and then the immune response, which has never seen this protein, starts to mount a response against it. So this is a difference between an intolerance and an allergy. Allergy, we can by a test find out exactly, like in the baby I told you about, what the allergy is, because the skin will respond in a huge hive. And once we know that, then the child has to stay away from that food for a while. Again, how long, we don't know. I mean, it all depends on how severely your child is allergic to the food. If it's a thing like a nut, for example, or shellfish or anything like that, then the allergies are, and they're very strong, then it's usually a lifelong allergy. But if it is something else and it's a small reaction, by stopping it for a certain amount of time, your immune cells, start to, forget. And then you can go back on the food after a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. But again, there's a protocol how we start you on it and things like that. There's a lot of amazing new developments in this field with food allergies. With environmental allergies, for a long time, we've been treating it quite successfully. Food allergies have always been the bête noire, it's the sense that we've not known how to do it. And the mechanism is slightly different from an environmental allergy. But in the US now, for example, for peanut allergies, they are similar to the dust mites or whatever. They've developed a vaccine in Johns Hopkins where you give it in tiny amounts and desensitize the child to the allergy. But it's not still available easily outside. There are patches available that you can put it, and it gives you the food allergen in small amounts and desensitizes you through
so the body
skin.
is slowly getting
immune to it. But as of now in India,
we don't have
it, and I don't even try unless it's a really, really, really life-threatening case and it's really difficult. Then just for 2 children, I have tried this. One child didn't do as well. They did okay, at least they're not in such a bad shape, but they're okay. The second child has really done well, but not enough data for me to even go there, and I do not advise this routinely to parents.
It must be expensive as well, right, Doctor?
It's not really expensive. In Goa, for example, an entire 6 months desensitization, I have really kept it at 4,500 rupees, which is 6 months. I mean, you're spending far more on your inhalers and the medications, and you're doing this, and this can remove it. But like in Bombay, like you very rightly said, it ranges anywhere between 80,000 rupees to 3 lakhs.
That's really expensive.
Yeah. But in Goa, I'm really doing my level best
Thank you.
Try and
I think
keep
from
this
all of us and everyone who's watching, thank you, doctor. And you spoke about the inhaler. Just to let you know that I only keep it in case of an emergency, like when it's really bad, and I know it's just stress that gets it on, and then I'm wheezing. So it's just two, from the pump, and I'm okay. But it is psychological support, and it is just knowing that it's in my purse, and at any given time that I require it, I can use it. So that is.
So this is really interesting that you said you were using Budocort. Okay, now Budocort is not an emergency inhaler. It's not going to help you in the short term. Budocort is an anti-inflammatory. It's a steroid. Okay, so steroids will help in reducing the inflammation. I told you in the nose you have an inflammation, lungs you have an inflammation, but as an emergency SOS inhaler, it doesn't work. It has to be taken.
So it's psychosomatic. It's a placebo. Oh my goodness.
It's a placebo because in your case, Budocort is an excellent inhaler, but it has to be given
over a period of time.
3 days to 7 days it takes to really work.
Now you told me it will not work next time. I hope there's no next time though.
But what works for an emergency is what you need to do. You need to open that airway. Okay? Budocort works in healing it. It doesn't work in opening the airway. Okay? So to open an airway, you need what's called asthalin, or now you have a levoisomer of asthalin called Levolin. So Levolin works to open the airways, to give you instant relief. It works within 20 seconds. It lasts for about 4 to 5 hours.
Right.
But that doesn't address the inflammation. So if a child is having this on a regular basis, you would give both something to give it and open the airways, and also
to heal it and cure it at the same time.
Like Budocort. Okay. But today, asthalin is extremely SOS. We have what is called a long-acting beta agonist, which is salmeterol, formoterol. We have something that lasts for 12 hours. So that's a lot of time they're separate or they're in combination with the steroid.
Okay. Right.
So we would give that. So, it's such each person is tailor-made, You can't have one
You
size
cannot have a standard, a generic one, and give it to everyone and say, okay, it's going to work for you.
So you're going to have to take an intensive history first, figure out what the person is allergic to, then you treat also even medically. If you're just doing a medical treatment also, each person, you have a different kind of thing. If they're sneezing only in the morning, why give them something that's going to last for the whole day, for example, So then and if the child is in school, then obviously you stay far away from drugs that make them drowsy, So, and if certain drugs go through the liver, certain drugs are metabolized like Allegra through the gut. So if you're taking something like Allegra, it's really important that you don't take it on a full stomach.
Oh.
Then it won't work.
Okay.
You said it doesn't work if you take it on a full stomach because it's gut metabolized. So you have to know how each drug works. And so that's how you give it. It's tailor-made. Medicine is a very fine art, So it
is not to be taken like we had a doctor on our earlier show, Dr. Kurchatkar, who had said there are people who buy over-the-counter medicine. Yes, everyone who's watching, please, doctor has been giving you names just to let you know, what it is and how it works. But that does not mean that you need to take it. You have to consult your doctor.
Yes.
Please consult your doctor before you take any medication or buy them over the counter.
Absolutely. And Goa actually you won't even find them. You're not supposed to be given medications over the counter.
Right.
States,
Okay.
I think I have another question on that.
Okay. We have Elvis Rebello, who says, for children, I would definitely prefer homeopathy because of the success my child got after a failed allopathic treatment. Okay, Elvis, notice, because yes, I do believe in homeopathy. And Elvis, just to let you know, this would be not just for Elvis, but for everyone who is watching. Doctor also teaches meditation. You are a teacher of Buddhist meditation, am I right?
No, meditation doesn't really have...
is it a different type of meditation?
No, meditation per se doesn't have any kind of ideology or doesn't have a dogma attached to it.
Okay.
Meditation is essentially, to watch your breath or to watch your body and to become familiar with your own mind, your own body, and your own breath, and your own whatever is happening in your body. So it really has. You don't have to be a Buddhist or a Christian or anybody else to follow a meditation practice. Anyone can do it. So yes, I do teach it. It really is helpful when stress is a cause. So if you can feel your body if you're meditating, and you can sense the initial reactions, you won't get these huge wells first. You are going to first feel in your body the sensation, for example. So once you get that sensation, if you can figure this out, then it might not go into
become really bad.
And also with asthma, panic attacks and asthma look very alike. So if you're panicking and you're having difficulty breathing, it's very similar to asthma. So, but if you know a panic attack is difficulty in breathing in, whereas asthma is difficulty breathing out. So if you can figure this out, then by just slowing your breath a bit, then you can have some level of control, because the more stressed you get, the more scared you get, the worse your breathing is.
Absolutely.
So breathing is one automatic thing that you do have some control over. So by just quietly slowing it down, that can happen. But I do want to answer Elvis Ribello's question about homeopathy as well. I am a trained allopath, so I definitely don't know how homeopathy really works. But I'm definitely open to other forms of medicine. Again, it's all, it's up to you. If your child is doing well and that's how you feel it's working, then why not? I don't think that there has to be only this or that or whatever else. But even homeopaths do refer patients to find out what, even Ayurvedic doctors refer their patients to find out what the allergy is. You don't
and then they can treat it.
Correct. You don't have to accept allopathic treatment. You don't have to be put on inhalers. You don't have to be put on even a desensitizing protocol or any of these things. Your homeopath can find out what it is and treat it appropriately. Because at least in that way, the homeopath also has,
he has pinpointed or she has pinpointed what exactly is the cause.
And also from a parent's side, I mean, even if you're doing homeopathy, if it's something you can avoid, then why not?
Of course. And from the little I have spoken with you, I know that you are open not just allopathy. Elvis doctor is, she speaks about alternative medicine. She speaks about, how meditation and your state of mind is how important, and the important role it plays.
It plays, yes, of course. I mean, so it doesn't have to be, what system of medicine you choose is your choice. I mean, and everybody has a choice to take whatever they want. I mean, so, but I can't give you an informed opinion about homeopathy because I'm not trained.
Right.
I mean, there's people who have trained for 4 years with it and have trained, so they are the best people.
Of course they are.
And I very strongly feel that choice is really important with the parent and the child.
The parent should know because they've seen their child. I mean,
Correct.
It was like my mom didn't know what to do.
Correct.
Seriously, doctor, I mean, she used to be sometimes in tears because she didn't know what to do. She was like, what should I do for you? And I'm like, I don't know. Because and the hives, as I said, they were not just small, they were all over the body.
Hives,
huge.
And again, everyone doesn't benefit, with any medicine. For example, if you go for a heart disease or you go for diabetes, I mean, some of them are treated well depending on the stage and many things, some of them can't. And in that case, and the same with homeopathy and Ayurveda. I mean, some of them can be treated, some of them can't. So all kinds of medicine, I mean, if one keeps one's mind open, then all of us are in the business to treat someone and make them well.
That is in the wellness business.
That's a wellness thing. So you have to, if someone's well, I mean, I would definitely not keep my eyes closed and say, oh, I'm just an allopath and therefore I don't believe blanket in homeopathy or Ayurveda or something else. Of course not. Ayurveda has been there for donkey's years. There's some excellent Ayurvedic doctors, Tibetan medicine. I have personal experience with someone with advanced malignancy that we would never be able to treat. That Tibetan medicine has done such a good job with it. So I think for chronic diseases, for example, they do have a space and they have a place in it. And I don't think we should keep a close mind. I'm totally against keeping a close mind.
Absolutely. You can't wear blinkers. You know, in Bombay, we used to have the Ghoda Gadi, and everyone, the horses had these blinkers. And when someone was not looking all around, we used to say, you're wearing Ghode ka chasma. So, yes, we cannot do that. We have to look at it, you know, all around and see what helps. It has to be holistic.
And you can't keep a close minded the other way around as well. A lot of people have a very bad experience with allopathy. We are also equally responsible for that, and my community as well. I mean, we tend to be arrogant as well, and we tend to feel that other forms of medicine are not up to the mark, or whatever reason.
Right.
But there's this bad feeling against allopathy. So you can't keep a close mind for that. If you have an appendix, for example, appendicitis, or if you have early malignancy, or so many other things. I mean, Western medicine or allopathy does really well for it. So if there's no cut and dry kind of thing, there has to be. And finally, we must make sure that the end product is that the wellness of the
wellness.
Yeah.
Yes, and the healing. Remina Faria says that her son is allergic to pulses. Not only that, if anybody is eating pulses or touches him, his eyes become red and it starts itching. Oh my goodness, now that's bad.
So that is a very, very high allergy.
Imagine somebody is eating it and your eyes start.
So even this little baby who came, if someone ate eggs and kissed the baby would get hives.
Oh my Lord.
Okay? Some people, even if you break an egg where that thing is about 10 meters away, they will collapse here with that. So because these are really severe allergies. So with Faria, she will have to know exactly which. She obviously knows the pulses, but it'll be much easier for her if she knows which pulses. And then she has to make sure that it's not in many certain foods.
So can you find out?
You can find out exactly which one. For example, if it's pulses like chana, for example, then even besan will cause all these same issues. So things like chudas, for example, which are hidden, or charts where besan is hidden, then those she will have to have a really good list. And then she also has to inform the school, because the child eats by mistake. The other child I told you that I desensitized against my wishes, but I did, was for chana allergy. Now this child had gone into 3 to 4 anaphylactic reactions, which is the highest form of allergy, where you just collapse and you don't breathe and you have to be rushed to a hospital immediately. That child, the last episode was in school. His mother had made besan, some dos or something like that, and then she had removed it from the dabba, she had washed it. 4 days later she put the child's tiffin in that dabba and she sent the child to school, and the child opened the dabba and collapsed.
Oh my goodness me.
And they had to rush to the school. But in this case, because the school had been informed, the teachers had been informed, all this had been done, they were also proactive. They could rush the child right away. The ambulance could be called. So they knew what it was. So in her child's case, it is really useful to inform the school.
And also, I was just coming to that point that parents need to inform.
They need to inform.
Not
Very
just
important.
the school. I think even family and friends need to be in the know, because they may have gone to a cousin's house or something like that.
Sure. I mean, and that's why in these cases I would also call the grandparents and I call the extended family. If they're staying as a joint family, and I explain to the grandparents, because sometimes the grandparents think we have brought up children, they didn't have allergies.
I know.
So
that is,
you're just being
but that's
very
natural.
Fussy. You're being very fussy, and things like that. But then that's why I call the grandparents particularly, and I say, no, look, in this case, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. I have a child whose mother is an ICU nurse, who is very allergic, and there I didn't have confidence that the grandparents would be able to take care of the child, because the grandparents didn't have as much faith in this sort of thing. So I asked the mother to take a year off and stay with the child till, because the mother herself was very highly allergic. So she took a year off and she stayed with the child.
Well, it's not possible for all parents, and that's very sad.
But see, this is where, for me, my loyalty is only and only to the child who is my patient.
Of course.
not to anybody else, and
Yes.
it doesn't matter what I have to
I
do to
know.
get the child well.
Absolutely, I agree with you, but I'm just saying that sometimes the financial constraints are there.
Yeah, I
Is it
understand.
possible for us, because we just have
Yeah.
2 minutes?
Yeah.
Is it possible for me to ask one question?
Yeah,
Only
sure.
if it's very short.
Sure,
You can. It's what is immunotherapy? Like what
So
exactly? would you do?
immunotherapy is we take what you're allergic to and slowly show it to your body in a very controlled way and desensitize you to what you're allergic to.
The one you were talking about, the patch
By
and
the
things
patch.
like
So
that.
patch is like a thing, but now we are doing what is called sublingual immunotherapy. So we make it and we give it to the parent, and the parent puts it under the child's tongue slowly over a period of time. It takes about 6 months to a year, but then lifetime the child is more or less desensitized.
So what is
from
this?
what-
Is this?
So we take the allergen, we first test with the allergen, and that same allergen we mix in a base of glycerine, and then I dilute it to what is suitable for the child, and then through that we give it. It's totally tailor-made. It totally depends on how allergic you are, how strongly allergic you are. All your reaction is made based on that,
Right.
and that is the real actual treatment. All others are suppressives. Everything else suppresses your response, your immune response. This one teaches the immune response to accept
It's like a
it.
vaccine.
It is a vaccine.
It
It is
is. It
It's
is.
called the allergy vaccine.
Okay, it is.
It is a vaccine. It's like oral
Okay.
polio vaccine. This is a vaccine.
All right. Okay. I think, Doctor, that's all the time we have. We have come to the end. I have learned so much. Of course, now I will not be able to use my Buddha card, but I've learned so much, and I'm sure you have. I'll take this opportunity again to say a very happy Dussehra to all of you. God bless. And till next time, take care of yourselves. Be happy.